Hello all. So today we will discuss about how you can set up a Business Central Docker container with a database on your local SQL Server. So the different ways how you can set up Business Central Docker containers, and the easiest one is to have the database inside your Docker container, which is a demo database. But this question came in the last BC Open discussion from Sam, and I thought it'll be a good topic to record a video on. So first, let's understand the scenario that Sam has, and we'll try to kind of simulate that process. So for the demo, what I have is I have a Business Central 17.4, and what I have, let me open it here. So this is my Business Central 17 cumulative update 4, if I'm not wrong. So the first thing that you'll do on your local environment or the database that you want to map is check what is the version of that database. So if you see, I'm using North America Business Central 17.4 with a platform of 17.0, 21485, 21516. And an application with this version. So while I am creating my Docker, I need to choose the exact build so that it matches to the application that I have locally installed, which in this case is 17.4. So what I've done already is I already have the Business Central Docker image downloaded for 17.4. So if I do Docker images, let me zoom this in, I'll see, and I have just done it to save time, that I have a Business Central 14 on-prem, which is matching to the exact version that I have in my local database. So if you see the 17.4, 21491 and 21531, and you don't have to pre-download it. I just did it so that it saves some time in the video. So now what we'll do is we'll use the Freddy's new BC container wizard command to create a container which matches, which uses this image. So let's open Windows PowerShell and let's do a new BC container wizard. But before we do that, let's understand how Docker is able to connect to the database. So when you want Docker to connect to the database, and when you set up a Docker, you normally either choose a static username and password, which is admin and a specific password, or you can give a custom username and a password. During the Docker creation process, if you use the demo database inside Docker, the same user with the same password is added as the sysadmin, or at least the database owner on the local SQL Server. So we need to make sure that whatever user we are using have the access to my database. So let's see what the database name is. So if I go to BC170, I'll see that the database name is BC174US. Okay, so let's go to SQL. This is my database. So what I'm gonna do is, just for time being, I'll create a new login here, and that would be a SQL Server authentication, and I'll name it as Saurav, and I'll give it a password. Make sure that your password is complex. I'm using a random manager at the rate 135 just to make sure that it validates everything. Once a user is added, I need to make sure that this user have permission to the BC174 US database and have rights of database owner at least. So once you are done with that, now we are ready to run our BC container wizard, and that's all we need to do. If you're not sure what you can do is you can, just to verify that your user is working or not, you can re-log in and this time use username password and see is it connecting or not. If it is not, then maybe your mixed mode authentication is not enabled on SQL and you'll have to enable those. Once that is done, now we'll start the new BC container wizard. So in the Windows PowerShell, run it as administrator and write new BC container wizard and hit enter. That'll check your BC-Containerhelper version and will pop up a separate window for it, which is open on my second screen. So let me grab it here. So this takes some time to check everything looks good or not, and then the wizard will start to give us options to set up a Docker container. So let's wait for that. Okay. So once the wizard pop up, the first thing is to accept the license. So we'll say yes. And let me type in here, yes. The second question, and I just said zoomed in where you can't see it, is to choose where you want to have your Docker container. I need it on local. Username and password, or as I said earlier, you can have a predefined password. So I'll choose username and password because I've already set it up. A container name that you want to give it. So let's say BC17 on-prem, or on-prem is the image name. So local. Okay. Now this is the point where you need to start thinking what you need to choose. If you are in a situation where Sam is right now, you need to make sure that his build matches to the build that is installed locally. So in that case, you can't choose the latest sandbox, latest on-prem. Maybe you can use, it's up to you, but I'll stick to the specific Business Central on-prem build when you need to choose and provide the version number. So I'll choose option F at this point. And as soon as I choose F, it gives me to choose a way where I can say what version and which build I need, right? So I'll go back to my, maybe here, and I can check it here. It's this. So I'll do here, I'll drag it down and I'll use the same build that I have, which is sorry, not available here, it's available here. So I'll pen support. My specific build is 17.4 21491 and 21531. Okay, so that's being said, I'll just paste it here. That is major, minor, build and release. Once I do that, it'll find that build and select it. Then I need to make sure that the country that I have locally, I'm choosing the same. So I'll say US. I don't need test toolkit for this scenario. That is not the intention of this video. Then I don't need the AL app at this point, so no. I don't need the VSX file, so no. I'll need the license file. Okay, so I can copy the license file and I can paste it here. Now here's a choice of where you want your database. Do you want to use the Cronus demo database on SQL Server inside the container? The second option is, do you want to restore a backup that you have inside the Docker? And the third one that we are going to use today is to connect to an existing database on a database server. Okay, so let's choose C. So when we choose C, Docker is telling us that you need to use this format. And wherever you see a pipe, you can either use server or data source. It's up to you, right? So I'll just start typing, which is server is equals to, and it says here that specify localhost or dot if the database server is on host. So let's do localhost. Then the second parameter is the database. Okay. And then we need to give the database name. So let's come here. Let's pick the database. And then is the user ID that you want to use. So user ID is my user ID. And then I'll use the same password that I have used in my SQL Server, as well as that will be the same password that I'll use to connect to my Docker. So I've given a random password here, which is just to keep it hard. So once you have this connection string in this format, you can click enter. Then these are the default options. I'm not going into it. I'm choosing default. Do not use SSL. Allow container. And the amount of memory is, let's say, 4G. And I don't want to save the image. And this is my command. So I'll save it, let's say docker demo, oh sorry, not docker, container demo, and I'll press enter. The wizard will stop and you'll see that your PowerShell will open with this command ready that you need to use to build this container. Let's read it through. It says the container name, the parameter, the credential, the authentication, the build number, the database server, database instance, if you have a database instance that comes here, database name, username, password, and then the license file, and then the new BC container wizard command. So I'll just run this and see what happens. Okay, so I'll use the same username and password here also, and that will start building the Docker container that I'm expecting. It'll take less time because I already have the image downloaded for that version. If you're doing it without the downloaded image, it may take some time based on your internet speed, how much it takes there. In the meantime, what I'll do while it is building is let's go into our Business Central and let's add the same user in the database, because that will need access to this database, right? So I'll do is I'll go into users page and I'll create a new user, and I'll just give the username as same which I have. Okay. And then I'll give the username password here for that user. Okay. And I don't want user to change this. Then what we'll do is we will assign this user some permissions. Let's make him super. So this user is super on this database. Okay, so now we are ready to get access to the database once this starts building. So it did most of the thing. Now it's starting the service tier, and then we'll be able to access it. But while we are doing this, just to verify that we are connected to the same database, what I'll do is I'll create a dummy customer, and then we'll see that can we access or can we see the same customer in my Docker environment. So when I click new and I say, let's say customer domestic, and let's see 0010, and I say for Docker. So the expectation is that we'll see the same customer when we access the Docker client. Okay, and we'll set it to blocked all. Okay, so now once the Docker gets connected and we have access to the environment, we should try to see that do we see this customer over there from the Docker client, from the Business Central client, that is from the Docker. So let's read it through while it's happening. What it did is it fetched the latest, checked the latest image of the Business Central that's available, or Windows operating system that is available. Also checked for the Business Central build that we needed, because it was already there. It didn't took that time. Then it started creating that Docker container. And right now the services started. Okay. And the containers started. Username, password authentication. It's creating a self-signed certificate. Starting the service tier, that's done, and creating the .NET Core. So in a while it should be ready for access. So let's wait for some time. Oh, okay, I guess it's done. Yeah. So what we got here is a Docker container that I can access from this URL. Okay. So let's go to our web browser and we will open it on a separate tab to see where we get connected. But that's what our test is, that the database that I'm accessing locally is that can be accessed from the Docker. So I've used the same password throughout in my Docker, in my SQL Server. So that makes that connection easier. I haven't tested this process with different password, but if there is a need, I'm pretty sure it's possible that you have a different username and password for the SQL login. So I don't think that will be a problem if you have to go that route. Okay. So we have successfully connected to the Docker container. Let's go into customers and let's see what happens. We are here and let's sort these numbers and we see that customer call for Docker. So we are actually connected to the same database. So if I do here that this is, that let's use some fields here which are relevant. Okay, if I say that this is the blog ID that acts as this customer home page, this change should also reflect into this, which is my local host 8080, which is my local environment. So now if I go into this environment, I should see that the home page should have been updated. Oh, it's not. Okay, let me see if I'm Cronus USA, and let me go out of this Cronus USA. Okay, it might be a refresh issue. Let me just open that custom page again. So if I go into this customer now, that should show me the home page. Oh, it's not. That's weird. Okay, that doesn't make any sense because it's stored here for this customer. Okay, let me log into this my local environment and then we'll see what happens. It seems to be stuck. Let's see. Take some time to load that. Oh, it's working on it, and that might be my machine because I have plenty of Docker containers running and other heavy application which are taking most of the memory, but it's surely connected because we saw that user there that we created. So it's just a matter of that time where that commit happens and I can see that. Let's see one more time. Oh, I see it now. So yeah, based on the wizard, you just need to keep an eye on two things, I guess. One is, do you have the same build of your Docker container which matches to your exact build on your local instance of your local database that you have, right? The platform and the database have a relation with the exact build. And the second thing is the parameter where in the wizard where you set up the database detail that you need to connect to. And third and the last thing is, you should have that user inside your Docker inside your local environment to have access for that particular user that will be using the database from outside. If those three things are in place, I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to build these Docker containers with database on host. So Sam, I hope that answers your question, and everybody let me know your views on this video. I'm not doing these so frequent these days, but I can do on demand. And we do meet every Saturday in BC Open Discussion, from where this kind of the source of this video came from. So do join us. There will be a link on the top somewhere here on the YouTube, which you can use to register for the next week. So thank you, and see you next time with a good question that I have. Thank you and have a great day.